crazy things happening in video games then.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
We need another that again.
Absolutely.
The thatning, whatever that is. But anyway,
Let's go ahead and get started though. For anybody
Absolutely.
who is here live as a supporter, thank you for chilling with us here. Anybody who supports on Patreon, or even those who are Twitch subscribers or even YouTube channel members, get to sit inside of this room and watch this be filmed live with us. And everybody else, thank you as well for joining us. This is the launch sequence, my new podcast following sci-fi games in general, but games overall, the industry, the market, the games we're playing, the games we want to play, the games we hope we someday can play, like Star Citizen, and everything in between. I am Kay, also known as Space Tomato.
And I am M, also known as Drazen.
And to this week so we're a little late. I was actually on a bit of a vacation this week. It was very nice. Got to spend some time with family, but we're getting to this one a day late. So a little extra stuff has happened since the last episode, but we've got quite a few things to get through. I think generally this is a great time to start a gaming podcast because there's so much going on. But also in general, I think May is going to be a very, very exciting month for anybody who's into gaming in general. And especially people who are, into things like Star Citizen, like us. We got stuff going on in Star Citizen in May. We've got E3 next month. We've got stuff happening all throughout the summer. So just a lot of stuff to be happy about in gaming. But why don't we start with Star Citizen? Since obviously that's what a lot of people are coming from to see this. So we finally got to hear from Tony Z. We have been waiting and waiting and waiting for Tony Z to come out and give another one of his talks. He did one in CitizenCon, I think it was 2 years ago. It was really good. It was about quantum, and this one was also about quantum, but you definitely got the feeling like back then when they did the talk, it was more kind of, this is what we're going to be doing, and this is what the software will look like. I was never fully sure if it was real or not, I kind of felt like it was partially mock-up when they did it at CitizenCon. Do you remember that?
No, I was not a part of that at the time. I was
Really?
a lukewarm backer. Still kind of warming up to the idea of actually playing Star Citizen on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. So I was not as embedded as I was then as I am now. However, going back to watching those videos to see, how far we've come since, I did get to go back and watch the video. So
Okay, so
that
you have
was
seen
very
it.
interesting. I have seen the video.
So what did you think looking at that video versus, it might have been a while ago for you, but looking at that older video versus the one that just came out this last week, did you see anything that stood out to you as being super different or maybe just completely different? I don't know how well you remember that video.
More detailed is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of the old video compared to the information and then in the new video, as well as just overall getting to see how it's implemented in the verse. It with updates with graphic design, things like that. It just looks a lot more polished on that end alone of us getting to see it, but it also seems like they're figuring out how exactly they want to implement it. I think you're going from shooting towards the bullseye to being extremely close, if not on the bullseye, with how they want to implement it and their exact idea. Yeah, essentially, that's how I feel about it.
That's a good point. It's kind of how they do a lot of their features, right? They develop a feature that they know they need and they know that they want to use, but they don't necessarily have it implemented yet. Like, what's a good example? I think the fire is probably going to be a good example of that. They've been showing us fire constantly. Well, actually not lately, but last year they were showing us fire a lot towards the end of the year. And they just kept showing them burning stuff. And like we're like, okay, this is awesome. It's actually really impressive what they're doing, but at the same time, what is it going to be used for? Like what's the point of this? And they never actually told us. And I'm sure they have ideas for it and plans, but the implementation of it comes a little bit later than when they first actually make it happen. So that's a good point, that They had quantum back then. They knew it was the backbone of the game and it would control the economy and all that stuff, but they didn't know the exact particulars. And this video really felt like they finally, while it wasn't all there implemented, they definitely had like the sections, the chapters that said, this is how quantum works here. This is how Quasar works here. This is how Odin works here. Um, Definitely builds more confidence. That's for sure.
I we can, something that people from Star Citizen are very familiar is the tier of implementation, right?
Hmm.
So let's take Tony from 2018 explaining it as tier 0.
Yeah.
And this implementation feels like a tier 2, maybe a tier 3, since tier 4 is essentially, if you can call that done. I feel that we're at a tier 2, maybe tier 3 implementation of it. So very close.
I was surprised that he said they are looking to have very, very careful about the wording here
Hmm.
because he said they are looking to have, I don't remember the exact words, but it gave the impression that yes, they are definitely going to have parts of quantum in the game and being tested this year, but it might not be in your face to the point where it's making a huge difference in the game. So I think while they are saying, hey, quantum is being implemented, there is some of the code bases in there. We're working on it as we go. And they did specify in every major patch from now on, quantum will see continual development. So it is a constant thing in the game from now on, but we don't actually know still when that's going to start to take effect. So I think people should maybe, as always, temper your expectations because Star Citizen is going to snatch them up and stomp on them if you let it. Um, but yeah, that is a
Repeatedly.
very, very exciting part of the game. Huge, huge part of the game. And I think that was kind of a blessing getting that video at the time that we did because otherwise this week would have not been the best. I
No,
think.
and I think that was a nice, you know, compared to other things that we got in the week that we'll talk with here shortly. Maybe it was they gave a lot and then they took a lot this week too.
Yeah. I
But
mean, they
I guess
did.
we can discuss that later.
They have been saying that they were going to do that video.
Hmm.
So it was only a matter of time. And they did tell us at the beginning of the month it would have been this month, and I was like, okay, well, it's got to be. I was thinking yesterday was going to be the last possible day.
Hmm.
That Friday would have been the last Star Citizen Live, but they did it on Monday, which was nice. As you're
Hmm.
saying, though, they had bad news as well,
Yeah,
and
I mean it was the what is it, the vintage wine with that with the
with bad cheese.
and then with bad with terrible with Walmart ISC
Ooh,
essentially.
ooh.
Yeah, why would you pair that? But maybe they were wanting a nice counterbalance, and maybe that's why they decided to put out the video because they knew the ISC they were putting out was gonna not be too great. But
Possibly.
anyway.
They could have just replaced it. Just put it
Hmm.
out on Thursday and call it ISC. Just do it extra. I don't. It's not a. I don't
Yeah.
know. It could have been a
Mhm.
coincidence. It might not have. But let's talk about the bad news. So ISC sucked. Obviously. I
Terribly.
mean, I'm sorry, but it did. It was. We were talking about it earlier. ISC is a look into the development of the game. That's how they sell it. It is inside Star Citizen, not outside, not
Mhm.
around, not jumping on top of. It's inside. And you're not going inside of the game if it's something that's available to the public. That's not a showcase. That's not something to go to the studio for. That's something to go to, you know, any other content creator for, a YouTuber for, a virtual photographer for.
It
So,
was an ISC that was thinly veiled as a sales pitch that was
yeah.
delivered weeks later than it should have been. And they're like, well, we'll just slap ISC on it and call it a day.
Yeah.
End the week with that, you know?
The people
Mm.
who are watching ISC don't care.
No.
They know about the ship. They've known about the ship for years. They've been around the ship for months. ISC is a different crowd from the people who are watching the general ship trailers or the videos that get cross posted on IGN and GameSpot. That's different. They're gonna see those in the 3.13 trailer. Of course, the ships weren't in that trailer, so they didn't get to put them in. But like, I feel like
Salt on the wound.
taking
That
yeah
ship.
taking up an ISC to make
Yeah.
up for that is just it doesn't feel right to me.
And mhm. And the salt on the wound was it was for the ship manufacturer Crusader, they'd already finished their day. So if you're watching this video and just learning about the ship, guess what? You don't
It's
get to buy
gone.
it.
Yeah.
It's gone. So what's the point? That was the least coordinated thing I've seen CIG do in quite a bit.
It felt like a last
You know,
minute thing, which is weird
it
because
did.
I know they had a lot of delays, and I'm sure
Mhm.
that's what people are going to straightforward. Oh, well, all the stuff got delayed off 314, so they'd have nothing to show for it. It did, just because that
Mhm.
stuff got delayed doesn't mean other stuff's not being worked on. There's other stuff that they maybe wasn't in the best place for them to show, but
Mhm.
we've watched 10 hours of the procedural food generation tool on your YouTube channel. Like, we don't. CIG, do you remember when you showed us 10 hours of food generation? We can watch other things on the
Mhm.
channel that have to do with the game development, just not something that's already out in our hands. That's weird.
Mhm.
But
Absolutely.
we'll stop ranting about that. What else was there? Was something else that people generally weren't happy about this week. Oh, that was the delays, right? But
Mhm.
that was last week, I think.
That was last week.
Yeah.
I mean, Anvil Day. I mean, piled on top of the ISC we got lined up perfectly with Anvil Day, which was a subpar manufacturer day. I would even go so far as to say probably the least favorite amongst the community. It sounded like the only thing that was a possible redeeming trait was that we heard some voiceovers about a possible, Anvil capital ship. Now, again, don't quote me on this, but there are some mutterings out there that we may be seeing something towards the end of the year. All signs seem to be pointing towards that. Whether we see that or not, I guess we'll find out. But that was probably the only redeeming factor for the end of the week on top of shitty ISC. So
Yeah. That's a bummer. It was May is a big month for Star Citizen, and there are things that happened this month that I think were kind of eye opening when you take that into context. One of them being that they dropped a bunch of delays uh, right before a ship sale. So,
yeah.
I mean, the whole idea that they do news or roadmap updates or anything like that based on the idea that they're selling more money or waiting for a ship sale or something like that, that is wind out of the sails of that argument. And I see that argument so much that, oh, they just decided not to say any of this news until they could sell a new ship. Or the idea that, oh, they just push a bunch of ship sales when they can. I saw that all year last year. And you know what? I think it was last year we didn't have a new ship sold for months, right? I think in the
Mhm.
beginning of the year, they sold something that had already been made. As in terms of new concept sales, I don't think we saw a new one until like the Talon, maybe. Did
We
we
saw
see
the
any?
Carrack last year,
But
right?
that's what I'm saying. That's a ship that already
Hmm.
existed. It was coming
We
into
saw
the
the
game.
we saw the Rock in the Talon.
Yeah. So that's it.
Hmm.
That wasn't an argument last year. Not only that, the argument that these ship sales are what's driving funding is also not an argument last year, because last year was the best year funding, and they weren't bringing in new concepts to the game. I think a lot of people, and hopefully there's somebody who's casually listening to this who doesn't is not involved in the game, may have heard misinformation about it, but like, you don't have to buy those ships to play the game, and a lot of people don't. And that's getting a little off topic, but just like
Hmm.
May was a very interesting month. A lot of stuff happened. The delays
Yeah.
happened. The sort of messed up video happened, but also the quantum happened. The big sale happened. The dynamic event happened. And we're learning a lot. This is, I said it in that recent video, but this is a time in Star Citizen when I feel like every month has some information that makes a big deal of the game now.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Um, but let's talk about the actual event, Invictus Week, and then we will take a step back from Star Citizen. So Invictus Week was, like every year, it's a military focused event that focuses on celebrating the UEE Navy, which is the government, and the amazing ships they have. This year, we got to see two new ships in the game. Ships that have never been seen, that are massive, that are not going to be in the game for a while, but are some of the most famous ships in the game's lore because of how big they are. That's the Javelin, which is what, like 200 meters long or something like that, 220 meters long, and then the Bangle, which is I think a kilometer long, almost like 994 meters long. And these are like actual ships. You could tour the Javelin, right?
Yes.
So I haven't been in the event yet. It's still ongoing, I think. So I still have a couple days to do it, but I haven't. And by the time obviously this goes out, it won't be going anymore. But you got to tour the Javelin, right?
Hmm. I
And
did, yeah.
what'd you think of that?
Um, oh, the ship was it was good. They blocked out quite a bit of it. I guess if I can complain about
Yeah,
anything, you could see, the mess hall, the living quarters. You got to hop in a turret that wasn't armed, one of the massive 6 turrets, which I believe have size 7 cannons on them, as well as ballistic gatlins on top. So getting to hop in that was cool. I feel like the Javelin tour probably catered to people who have owned the Javelin, air quote owned, of course, owning a JPEG of it for a while. I think it was a nice catering towards them to actually get to see a ship and
like,
get to be
hey,
inside of it. That
you
they've
did
spent
buy a
two
ship.
thousand. You're right. You spent $2,000 on this, and now you're finally getting to see it. So
Yeah,
cool. It's a neat ship. I think it just adds on to this idea of holy crap. We're not going to be able to run this thing unless we have a huge amount of people on.
dude.
But it was cool. The voiceovers were great. I think the voice actors were phenomenal, and they paired it with the correct mouth and hand movements. It's a great ship to see. After seeing it once, it lost all the appeal to me. I saw it once, ran my friend through it once to show him, hey, we're gonna expedite this. That was it, but it was
Man,
neat, I guess.
that's that's a lot of Star Citizen right now. It's cool,
Mhm.
it's neat, and then you're done.
Yep.
Uh, there's a lot that needs to be done for that to not be the reality anymore. So
Mhm.
I'm excited for that. But yeah, like you said, just like you looked at it and said, "Oh my gosh, there's no way we're going to be able to man this without a lot of people." I'm also like, "Oh my gosh, this isn't going to happen for a long time." And it
Yep. Absolutely.
that can be a bummer sometimes because it's already been a long time. And that's the greatest criticism of the game, one that I don't think is unfounded, but it is frustrating. It so besides the javelin tour, the Bengal we also got to fight, right, as a group.
Mhm.
So we partnered up. Actually, Drazen, I'll let you explain. What do we do as as an org?
Absolutely. Well, Narsgavog of Walkers of Sigma 957, which is a organization that we partner with quite a lot, he messaged me the day before Invictus kicked off, or I believe the day it kicked off, and he said, "Hey, let's go and kill the Bengal." I was taken aback,
Like,
but I
okay,
hopped on. I said, "Hey, why the hell not?" We decided to set up with Omni as well, so it was a 3 org effort. We got around 10 retaliators and 2 fully crewed hammerheads to attack the fleet that was there with the Bengal. Now, to put this in perspective, it was not just the Bengal. It
mm-hmm.
was accompanied by 3
Idris. Yeah.
Idris M's, as well as F8 Lightning support craft to protect it. So while I was not there, you were. The after action report was that we did kill all of the Idrises as well as all the fighter support craft, but we didn't even touch the shields on the Bengal. So it was a good
Yeah.
attempt, but we knew it was unkillable anyway. And
Yeah, the Bengal it seems is invincible in game,
mhm,
right? So it won't obviously be invincible in game in the future, and it won't actually be that big a part of Star Citizen, not as big as the Javelin or the Idris, but the Bengal is not something that's going to be treated like a ship in the game. When you think of the Bengal, you're going to want to basically think of it like a space station, both in terms of size, in terms of firepower, responsibility, and probably mobility. You're not going to be able to take that ship many places without getting a ton of attention. So I do think that that whole invincibility concept is probably how we're gonna have to think about it anyways. The best way to take it down is to gonna be to get inside the ship, but it
absolutely.
was a very fun activity. We do a lot of stuff like that with our org, Garden Interstellar Initiative. If any of you guys ever want to join it, it will be in not the video description for this, but it should be pretty easy to find. Just find me Space Tomato and you'll find it. You were gonna say something
Absolutely. Nope.
about
That
the
was
Bengal?
it.
Oh,
That's all
okay.
I got.
Okay.
No.
Let's talk real quick. I did say we were going to go over that event and then move on, but We should talk briefly about one of the other big announcements in Star Citizen. That is the RSI Scorpius. It's a new ship from RSI, a heavy fighter with a four-wing formation, an X-wing formation. It's a really freaking good-looking ship. I love it. It also, I think, kind of looks smaller than it is. I think it's a little deceptive in that, especially in the pictures. This ship is big. It's a 27-meter ship, I believe. So you're talking, I want to say twice the size of a Pisces, twice the length, which I guess doesn't feel that long. Think Super Hornet size, I guess, right? It's like 27 meters, but it's a decent sized ship, and then it's also quite wide. But I love it. What do you think of it?
think it's a neat ship. I think it suffers a lot of the issues the Super Hornet has of lots of bits that can be shot off that can really negatively impact the ship. I
Mm-hmm.
think people will really enjoy it. I think it is like a hawk, the Anvil Hawk is what I would compare it to. I think it has a great role. I think you'll find people who like it. I think the F8 Lightning is going to stomp it in almost every single way, but I do feel that people will really enjoy it and will really get a kick out of it. Um, but I don't necessarily think it will appeal to a as broad of an audience as the F8 will, since it's
Hmm.
so core to the Squadron 42, and it's a ship that will
It'll be
either get to
polished.
own now if you spend $10,000, or if you will, buy it in game. But it's going to be so polished. It's going to be
Yeah.
probably the nicest craft to fly in Star Citizen, I feel. But
Yeah, that or the Gladius. The Gladius is
or
going
the
to be
Gladius.
real nice to fly. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Um. Well, that's yeah. The whole bit shot off thing is a
Mhm.
good point. I think.
Its shields also. It only has two small shields, so once you get through those, you're at the whim of whoever's fighting you.
Mm,
So
mm.
hmm.
I think they really need to improve turret gameplay for that ship to be. I mean, a two-person fighter is just the speeds that we're going at. It's unrealistic. There's such a problem with speed in Star Citizen in that we want to we want to feel like we're moving fast, and that's really hard to sell in space. So you could pick realistic speeds. You're gonna be like, you're going 500 meters per second, which is freaking fast. But when we look down at the ground when we're not in space, it looks slow. So when we're up in space, it feels even slower. So nobody wants to fly at that speed. But if we go super fast, not only A, are we losing, those combat capabilities that they gave us last year, but B, you can't freaking shoot a turret when you're both flying at 1,000 meters per second. It's impossible. And they're either going to have to make aiming and using turrets very gamey and very simple to use in order to fix that, or something's going to have to be fixed with speed. And I think that problem exists for a few different things when it comes to combat. I mean, being able to make decisions like changing which shield face you're on, how capacitors, which they are going to rename, uh, are working, whether your relays are working, how your components are doing, all of this stuff and high paced combat is insane. So I am very, very that's one thing that's always on my head when it comes to combat is how is that going to play out with the way that speed works and that we want to feel speed but also be going slow enough to have a lot of fun fighting.
Yeah,
That's my combat rant.
absolutely. Mhm.
I don't even
And I
do combat, but there it is.
yeah, yeah, I think this kind of goes along with their idea of bringing in combat in closer, a lot more high paced, high speed,
Mm-hmm.
however you want to say it. But I feel like space battles are not going to be something long and drawn out. I think you're going to see victors going to come out on top within the first minute or two. You're going to see
Mm.
who's going to win fairly quickly, and I think the ship definitely fits in with their a style of gameplay that they're going to do combat. Maybe a hit and run that would be paired well with the alien ship that we got last year.
Well, you're going against the preachings of Tony Z with that one, man.
Right?
In the last video that they just put out, he was saying that, or no, 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 that wasn't Tony. That was John
That was a
Crew.
Tony.
That was John Crew on. Was that yesterday or was that Friday? That might have been last week, but I think it was last week.
Mm.
He was talking about time to kill being above a minute. He expects it to be getting longer than it is now. But I think
It's
that's
so strange, right?
but I think
They last year they were focused on bringing the combat in, bringing it so you have to be close to your enemy. We're not doing this, jousting combat or the wagon wheel combat, to bring it in very close. And then it's almost kind of superseded by now what we learned last week with he's wanting time to kill to be over a minute, things to be a bit more drawn out. Well, you can't have one without the other. So
well,
how are they going to
I
tackle
think
this?
that's has to do more with the damage model, right? How
Mhm.
you're going to shoot ships and they're not going to explode. You're going to shoot ships and they're going to fragment apart. You're going to disable components, and instead of killing them, you have to board them. I think when he says time to kill, that's also including time to disable, time to control, time to board, time to, take captive, and then time to kill. Like, there's a lot more in there besides just shooting and killing. So maybe that's what he means. Uh, you're going to be doing 30 to 60 seconds of shooting, but then you're also going to be doing another 2 minutes of maybe cutting through the hull, or you're going to be doing 30 seconds of shooting off their power plant or shooting down their weapons, and then another 30 seconds of taking out their shields, stuff like that. I think because they're going to build more diversity into the combat experience, that's what's going to expand it. But who knows? I do think that they're aiming for longer battles, though. Speaking of
Absolutely.
combat, though, let's say other professions besides combat. So we have. I want to talk about the different professions and the ships that we need for those professions. The starters we know. We have the Vulture for salvage. We have the Vulcan for repair and refuel. We have the Prospector for mining. We don't have anything for refining. And we have what? We have like a few ships for exploration. I guess the 315 would be the best beginning exploration ship. What else is there? The Cutlass Red for medical.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think they might want to start shifting their ship development to be focused on that next at mid tier, or the next jump up from profession starters to more, low mid, true mid, or high mid, low end game size ships where they're, medium size, maybe medium to large size, require a crew. Maybe they can be crewed by a single person, or at least flown by a single person, but having crew requirements between 3 to 5 people. So not quite the crew requirement of a large or capital ship in game for professions, but really fleshing out that mid tier
Okay, so you're
for ships.
talking you're talking middle range ships like say the Mole.
Mole, yeah, mole size, yeah,
Okay, I got you.
absolutely. For
We
salvage,
we
because
still
we
haven't
have the.
seen anything for
Go ahead.
refining though.
We still haven't seen anything for refining at all.
Yeah.
Period. We haven't seen small, medium, large, nothing.
Well, we've seen the
So
Starfarer,
we've seen the Starfarer,
but that's it.
but yeah, that's it.
So I wonder when we might see maybe they'll just wait until refining's actually in the game to do it. But like we have the small salvaging ship and the small repair ship, and they're
Mm-hmm.
obviously not there. So it's gonna
Yeah.
be interesting to see when they do refining. A lot of people thought it would be the ship from last year, but it was not. Don't know when
So
that'll
yeah,
be.
they're cranking out all these new fighters and possibly a capital ship that's focused on fighting.
Hmm.
When are we going to start seeing ships being cranked out for professions that are catered towards people who want to see certain gameplay loops to possibly drag people to get active back into the game, or come to the game but didn't come already because they either only have one ship they can utilize for the profession they want to see, or
Hmm.
they don't see a ship that they like just yet. I wonder when we will hit that development phase of Star Citizen.
Yeah, I think in the next couple of years, things really feel like they're starting to get past the foundational stage. Only nine
Soon.
years in, and we're getting past the foundation.
Mhm.
But enough about Star Citizen. Let's get on to the rest of our show today, which is going to focus on different aspects of gaming. I want to talk about Battlefield first, because I
Oh,
know you're
hey,
very excited about that. Yeah,
talking
and
about
I think
sticking into
we,
my own field.
I think we spoke briefly on it before. I
Mhm.
don't know if any new details have come out about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay,
Oh
let's hear
yeah.
it. Let's hear it. What's going on?
So most of this is taken from Tom Henderson, who is a pretty well-known industry insider, especially on the EA side of things. So we may possibly be looking at a Battlefield 6 alpha release date. We have, of course, EA Play
Wait,
2021. Yeah,
not a beta, an alpha.
not a beta, an alpha. Yes,
Huh.
yes, an alpha.
Okay.
So that's what, and I'll continue here on this. We may be seeing a reveal of this in June during EA Play. It may be mentioned kind of as a big thing, as a, oh, here it is, you'll get to play it, or it might be slipped in at the end as, oh, hey, yeah, by the way, check it out. We don't know. We do have images from Battlefield 6. We don't get a
We
lot of
do?
this as, we have some images, yeah. We don't know if it's confirmed or not. It definitely looks
Okay.
really new. Again, this is all leaks, so we really don't know.
What
But
kind of?
Mhm.
Sorry. What kind of stuff are you getting from the images? Like, what are we seeing in these leaks?
Just pictures of clips of the campaign, essentially. Some are from a vehicle standpoint, some are from a soldier standpoint, things like that. So we're getting a look in what the UI might be. But essentially, the core of it is we'll see a showcase at EA Play 2021, which is going to take place in July. We may hear word from them in June about Battlefield 6 getting some official
Yeah,
information,
I
but
bet they'll do a teaser.
yeah, teaser for it, absolutely. And then, of course, for EA Play, July 22nd, which is coming up about a month or so. So we may hear something this month. We may not hear anything until EA Play. We should hear something firm. But we are hearing that there may be an announcement that an alpha could be released to be played during July. And of course, again, they're still targeting a holiday 2021 release date for Battlefield 6. They're releasing an alpha in July. It's going to be a lot of crunch to get a beta
Yeah.
pushed out and get the final game pushed out. We
Mm-hmm.
may be seeing a hamburger where we only get the meat of it, and we still have to wait for everything else when the game releases.
Ah,
It's
classic.
unfortunate, but it's classic now.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's really the news we've gotten. Again, this is all leaks. We don't know if any of it's confirmed, so take it with a huge, with grain of salt.
I would say that it's. I bet that they're misnaming it as an alpha and it's beta. I feel like
Mhm.
that's what they do in this industry. They're like, "Oh, this is alpha footage. Don't criticize this." When in reality, they just don't want you to say anything about their beta. They want to be like, "Oh, but it's alpha. We'll change it." No, it's the beta. Like this is basically done. You're letting us play this. Nobody, no publisher like that in their right mind would put out a product like Star Citizen, right? Actually, Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk. God.
Also, Fallout 76. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna go ahead and eat those words.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to. Yeah, obviously, I'm not saying those games are as bad as Star Citizen or Star Citizen is as bad as those games. Everybody's got their own opinion. I'm just saying, in terms of objective glitchiness, they are around the same level. Yeah. So I
And
guess
keep in
they
mind,
could absolutely. It could be an alpha.
they
We'll see.
packaged that and put that out as is too. So they were very well aware of what they were putting out.
Yeah.
At least Star Citizen's up front about it and saying, hey, this is
Yeah.
just an alpha that you're playing.
Yeah.
They decided
Fallout.
to release a whole game.
They were Fallout. They were straight up like, "This is the game. Love
Mhm.
it." That was bad. That was a bad launch.
Yeah.
Uh, so okay, Battlefield 6 is going to be exciting. If the alpha does come out, we're definitely playing that. I
Hell
am.
yeah.
I'm not one of the people who experienced Battlefield 5 and said I was done with the series forever. I think that's kind of silly.
Mhm.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Battlefield 5, but I also haven't been the biggest fan of almost any games that came out in the last 5 years. So I'm hoping to be impressed with this new wave of games that's going to be starting this fall. But I just got my fingers crossed. And we got a couple other things to talk about with that. I mean, there's a lot. I just looking at the E3 stuff that we have here that we could talk about. There is a lot going on. I just very briefly want to touch on one that has me super excited. Ken Levine is the original creator of BioShock, the game of which you have had spoiled and still have not played. Believe I gave you homework last time.
You did. I have not done that homework. My cat ate the homework.
Ah, The
Yeah.
freaking cats. We know how they
Yeah.
act.
Hmm.
So he's working on something new. He started a new studio, and we all know he can have a little bit of trouble getting his products fully
Hmm.
finished and completed for us. But when they do get complete, generally they are amazing. So I'm excited about this, and I hope we hear something about it at
Hmm.
E3. But I think one that a lot of people forget about is actually a big deal. Beyond Good and Evil 2. Did you ever
Hmm.
play the first Beyond Good and Evil?
I did not. However, I did do some homework. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm just remember C's get degrees here, right?
Yeah.
I did watch the trailer for Beyond Good and Evil, Beyond Good and Evil 2, as well
Oh,
as
it's
the
so
release
cool.
trailer they did for the first one. I also saw gameplay footage of the first one, and it amazing game. I
It's
may
old, but
dive into
yeah,
that franchise.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's old, but very cool.
Hmm.
And it's a legend. That is a legendary. That's like almost Half-Life levels of legendary. I feel the way I hear people talk about the franchise is something that maybe Half-Life, kind of Half-Life. It's kind of the same way because it was an amazing game. It got off. It ended on a great note. There was no reason not to do another one, and then it just didn't have any more. And so it sat. It sat and sat and sat, and people were like, "Where's this? Why are we not getting another game?" It's just like with Half-Life. Apparently, and you've done your research, so maybe you can corroborate this, but it was unofficially announced that a new good Beyond Good and Evil was in the works in 2007. That's 14 years ago, and between then and now, we have had confirmation from people over time that it was being worked on. We don't know if it was for all those years. It probably was not for all those years. In fact, it most likely was scrapped several times and restarted as a project, but we do know that it at least saw the start of development. And so I wonder to myself, do we say that's when it started? I don't think it's fair, but at the same time, you're like, look at all these other games that take a while to come out. We know that, for instance, Mass Effect Andromeda saw multiple iterations where it restarted, but we still say it was being developed for like 7 years, 8 years. Same with Anthem. Same
Absolutely.
with Star
Same with
Citizen.
Anthem. Hmm.
So, when do we say it actually started? It got officially announced in 2017, I believe, with that teaser trailer. So 4 years. It was obviously started before that. So it's been around in the works for a while, and we have not heard much about it. What have you unearthed?
About Beyond Good and Evil 2,
Yeah.
nothing.
Oh,
Essentially nothing. I have,
nothing.
besides it being, the official announcement in 2017 with smatterings of words and leaks and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
haven't really heard too much about it. So,
Nah.
what I have found and what I've been able to piece together, I think it's going to be a great time for it to come out. It is cyberpunk in one of the truest senses. The bar is set low for the cyberpunk genre because, well, we won't go into it. However, I think it's a great time. I think the market is prime. You've got people who are interested in it who may be actually kind of disappointed for the cyberpunk genre, but I feel like the water has been warmed. It has been heated, and it is perfect timing for somebody to slip in there and to really give a strong showing for the genre, which I know you and I would both like. And this may just be that game to do that. We don't know. We'll see. But the market is prime for it. So I think it only makes sense for that game to come out within the next year or two.
I think this is a game that's not only primed for that success you're talking about, but also to kind of take it by storm. A lot of people don't know about this franchise. A lot of people who play now, they weren't gaming back then. I mean, I barely know about it. I was playing back then. A lot of people got into these types of games much later or just starting to play now and are going to love that. So that combined with the fact that it has that nostalgic past already and all these people are ready to pick it up means that this game could blow up. Now, they've kind of been missing out on that hype. They announced the game 4 years ago and have essentially gone quiet. They had a little bit of a mishap when they said, "Hey, we're gonna have this community event where you guys make music and we could use it in the game." And people were kind of sketchy about that. Like, are you giving rights? Are you giving the proper, you know, the recognition to these artists and all that stuff? That's honestly just about all I've heard about the game since the announcement. I think they're missing out on some of the hype they've generated and they need to capitalize on that. This year would be a phenomenal time to release the game. I don't think anybody's expecting that. In fact, that would probably overshadow a lot of the other stuff that happens at E3, but I don't think that'll happen. I think they need a longer marketing time period for that. So that's good. That's Beyond Good and Evil 2, and that's all good and fun. But why don't we jump onto the Xbox brand, which has a bunch of stuff that we're planning on seeing, and just to iterate when we talk about this, when I say Xbox brand, I'm specifically saying brand because there's the platform and the brand. And a lot of people in my recent Starfield videos seem to think that when I say Xbox, I mean the platform. I mean the brand. These games are coming to both PC and Xbox, so they are relevant to both of us. But they've got some good things happening. Clearly, the one we're most excited about is Halo Infinite.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we were supposed to get an update at the end of every month about Halo Infinite on every
hmm
Thursday, and I don't think we got one this week, right? We looked it up and I didn't see one.
I have seen information um, concerning it. I haven't seen anything officially posted. I know a few days ago they did have an announcement of its showcase event. They also had a promotional picture for presentation that featured a number of Spartans from Halo Infinite. Of course,
Hmm.
Master Chief was not included in this lineup, which is huge. The ones seem to
So
be all custom models, like unique character models that are often seen in the multiplayer aspect of Halo
I see.
games.
Okay. Okay.
hmm So it could be a tease that the multiplayer that we're seeing, for Halo Infinite,
Or it
that
could
might
be a tease
tease.
that there's more Spartans in Halo Infinite.
hmm And well, we did have a leak emerge last month that a character named Spartan Griffin is poised to show up in Infinite as well. We don't know what he looks like, but he could have been one of the Spartans in the image that we did see. Who knows?
I don't recognize the name. Is that a Spartan 4? Or is it
Spartan Griffin, I don't remember. I want to say he's a Spartan 4. He's a part of Fireteam Taurus. That was with Vettel, Arisho, and Dimka. Shadows of Reach, do you remember that?
Yeah, I didn't read it, but I remember it.
Okay. So he would be, so I
So he was a
believe,
2?
I think so. He was
Huh.
a Spartan. No, no, he was a Spartan 4. He was a Spartan
Okay.
4.
I was going to
He was a
say.
Spartan 4 for sure. Yeah, he was a Spartan 4. He
Okay.
had Gen 2 armors. They had the Gen 2, but he was a Spartan 4.
I see. Well,
So
it'll be interesting if we hear anything about that. You said you've heard rumors about a beta possibly coming out this summer.
absolutely, yeah. And
To
that was
sign up
something
then.
we just signed up for as well.
Yeah.
We can possibly play the Halo Infinite beta. And of course, people should definitely sign up to try and get into that. We don't know when it will be, if it'll even happen. You can sign up for Halo Insider. Just Google that if you're watching this. I signed up. Tomato signed up. So,
Even
hey, if
though,
we can get that.
according to Discord, I've been playing for the last few weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe you'll actually get to play. Who
Yeah.
knows?
So that's one we're super excited about. As always, Halo is a big part of honestly the Space Tomato, the garden as a whole. A lot of people don't play it, which I find very insulting. But
Extremely.
it is definitely will always be a big Central Park. Halo is a big part of this brand. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the series, so we're definitely that's going to be a part of this. If you guys are into Halo, make sure to come and ask us to play. Chances are we'll say okay. There is one other big game that people know is going to be part of Xbox and part of Microsoft Showcase with Bethesda. Um, Very obvious one, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a different one that I think people are not remembering, and that is Fable. Have you ever played Fable?
Nope.
It's not
And
sci-fi, so it doesn't
uh,
really fall under our sort of umbrella, but it is a really good RPG. A really good. You never tried it on Xbox?
yeah,
Oh
never.
man,
I had friends that played it, but it never appealed to me, so
hmm
I always just passed on it. But tell us about
Fable.
it.
Fable came from Peter Molyneux, who's he's kind of a Todd Howard, Chris Roberts kind of character. He'll tell you everything he wants to happen in the game and tell you he's going to do it, and then he'll remember he can't, and then he won't do it, and you're
Hmm.
kind of left going, well, what the heck? That being said, just like those other two I mentioned, a lot of times the games do come out pretty good. Fable 1 and 2 were both very good. Fable 3 was okay. But it was very much it's a series that's all about time and how the decisions you make affect everything over time. So they have time jumps where you will say visit this town and do something in the town and then leave and take on the whole game and come back, and the town is aged by years, and you'll see how people have changed, how things have changed, how the town has changed, all that stuff. And that's incredibly exciting. That's something that's why I play Civilization 6. And I think that's a very interesting aspect to have in an RPG. So that's an interesting game people should keep their eye on. That will most likely be at this E3. It has been bought and is now being made primarily by Microsoft under their Playground Games studio, who makes Forza, their racing games. And I think
Mhm.
that's going to be a pretty big one to watch. But Starfield is also going to be interesting. We haven't really got anything new about that, but that is coming out at E3, or rather, that's going to be shown at E3 as well. We did just get a teaser from Microsoft. Did you see that picture they released?
I did, yes.
And so people have very quickly identified that obviously there's a lot of the Halo, and that's the picture you're talking about, right? With the different
Yes,
Spartans on it. Yeah. So
with
there's
the
a lot
different
of
Spartans.
Halo on the top side of the picture, but on the bottom side, you see the exact same planet from the Starfield trailer.
Hmm.
And so obviously that's them kind of giving us that leak. Hey, we're going
Hmm.
to show something Starfield related at E3. So obviously keep an eye out for that. That should be good as well. And let's talk about Stalker. Have you ever played that one?
Never.
Neither have I. But I've heard a lot of good things, and it falls kind of in our category. So the first one was, let me see if I can remember this correctly. The game is about an area that is radiated beyond healthy levels. So nobody really hangs out there, but there are valuables in the area that people venture in for. So you have factions and groups of people who are in there fighting and defending areas and trying to capture these different artifacts and stuff. And you are obviously a person who tries to do that as well. Apparently though, it is kind of like a RPG open world survival game, but it came before the survival games. Stalker, the first one, I believe, was in the original, I think the 2000s or the 90s, but it's pretty old and celebrated very, very much. It's very highly celebrated, and people love it. And they just announced the trailer for a new one. And from what I've seen, it gets me very excited. It's it's a genre that's gotten very big, and so now
Mhm.
there's a lot of money in it, and it's also a game that's been bought by Microsoft, who also has a lot of money. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that they can expand the franchise into something really, really big for Microsoft as a whole. And I think that's worth keeping an eye on, as that could be something that we could slip into the regular cycle.
Mhm.
I would definitely, if we had like a polished mainstream sci-fi leaning survival game for us to play, I think that would fall right into the Garden's favorite box.
Okay. Interesting.
Is there anything coming from E3 that you're looking at?
No, I
No.
mean, it is the same for me. I'm looking for Halo Infinite and Battlefield. That is it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised by hearing about games that maybe I didn't look into before,
Hmm.
such as Starfield that I'm learning more now, or just games that none of us really expect to hear release, but that do. I'd love to be pleasantly surprised. Of course, we had, Mr. COVID last year, which really put a dampener on a lot of video games and on E3 as well. So I'm really hoping for a strong resurgence of E3 in
Hmm.
2021.
Yeah. Yeah, you said that you usually stick to maybe three or four tentpole games that you really enjoy, and then everything else is just butter on the toast. Is that a saying?
Absolutely.
Is that a thing? Butter on the
Butter
toast?
on the
I don't
toast.
know. Toast is better
Yeah.
with butter on it, so.
Butter on it. Yeah. Maybe gravy on the biscuits because I'm Southern and Texan.
Yeah, I guess, but it's a
Yeah.
Texas thing. I can't be saying that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
avocado on the toast. It's more of a
Avocado.
California thing.
That's West Coast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Hmm.
gotta represent the brand is important. Anyways, so there isn't really much else. I mean, there are other things coming that we can expect, but nothing else that I feel we should really talk about. But you did mention that EA plays in July,
Yes. July
so
22nd.
they are skipping. They're not necessarily skipping E3, but they are saying, "Hey, we've got our own event, so all the big things are going to happen there.
Yes.
We're going to show our 50th rendition of FIFA at this July 22nd event rather than your June 13th event." It's kind of
Mhm.
thing. Okay. Well, then let's move on to the other company that decided to skip out on E3. Sony, as always, they did this last year, along with everybody else, but like they're doing it again this year, and they were the first to announce it. So I kind of wonder if they were like, "Oh, everybody's gonna skip this year. Let's just be the first." And then they announced that they were skipping it, and everybody's like, "Nah, we're going." Now Sony's like, "Fuck, we gotta host our own event," because
Yes.
I mean they have a lot of pull, they have a lot of power, but
Mhm.
I think this is a year that a lot of people are just very excited to see another E3. There's going to be a lot of eyes on E3 because last year didn't really happen, and even before that, a lot of people were saying E3 is kind of drying up for years now, like 6 years. I've been hearing people like there's less and less reason to tune into E3 with more companies doing their own events. And this has been true every year for the last several years, but this year it looks like they're all banding together and getting back on the wagon. So, we'll see what happens. But Sony, they just showed off Horizon Forbidden West, which is the sequel to their Guerrilla, what is it? Guerrilla, is it just Guerrilla Games? Guerrilla made Horizon Zero Dawn, which was
Mhm.
a PlayStation exclusive, published by Sony, made by Guerrilla. Very, very good game. You don't have a PlayStation though, right?
Never had. The only Sony piece of equipment that I ever owned was a PlayStation Portable that was a hand-me-down. And I played Burnout and I believe a Metal Gear Solid game, as well as the other one that I had mentioned earlier, Castlevania.
I always feel so bad about exclusives because
Mhm.
not only are people just not getting the chance to play a game, but they straight up just are robbed of the experience. And that sucks. Horizon Zero Dawn's a very good game, and I think everybody should get the chance to play it. And I actually think it came to PC, so you might want to check it out. But it's a really good
Hmm.
action adventure game. The new one is beautiful. It has amazing looking graphics. Good lord, it's got something that I feel Star Citizen is missing sometimes. And I said this on the stream. Star Citizen sometimes feels a little blown out, a little not deep, dry. Horizon Forbidden West just looks juicy, like saturated, dripping with mwah. I don't know what it's called, but when you watch the trailer next to Star Citizen, you'll see it. And that's probably mostly the post processing stuff that needs to be done at the end of the process, at the end of the cycle, but it's just beautiful. And they're taking things into the water now. In the first game, you couldn't go into the water. In this one, you can go swim underwater. You can plan things. You can take missions, find stuff. So obviously, the environment gets much more bright, vibrant, much more colorful, and pretty to look at. So that's always fun. New enemies, new weapons, new activities. It's your general sequel. And it's weird because I see people like, "Oh, it's more of the same." And then I think back to like, what if I had said that about Halo 2? Halo 2 from Halo 1 isn't like a super radical change. The biggest change was dual wielding, I think, and playing as an elite. But that's mostly it. Besides that, it was mostly the story, a little bit of gameplay, extra enemies, and different areas. That's all I don't need to see too much else. I do like some drastic gameplay changes, but I feel like this is going to be a very good sequel and something to look out for. And unfortunately for PC players, it's not going to mean much. But I do think it's worth talking about. I think we need to see games like PlayStation exclusives, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Death Stranding. We need more of those on PC. More very, very enjoyable single player games because
I
we're all
agree.
multiplayer. And
We're all multiplayer.
yeah, I think Squadron
Or at
42 is
least
going to
co-op.
be a good addition to that.
I think so too. I love single player games. They're awesome. I think you can really get embedded into a story if it's only you.
Hmm.
I think Halo does a phenomenal way of you can do it by yourself. After you complete it, you have co-op as well. Um, I think you have some options when it comes to campaigns. I hate the idea of completely getting away from campaigns, even if that enriches a multiplayer online experience. I
Yeah,
really think you shouldn't sacrifice that, especially with games who've really built their franchise on their campaigns because it really gives you an insight into how the game is played, a lot of the mechanics, things like that.
yeah. I remember back when we first started doing online gaming, and you'd get online, and they would say something like, "Warning: uh, online experience may change your like." They're essentially saying like if you play online, then your own gameplay experience is going to change. And I always took that as them telling me if you play online, then you're not going to suck as bad. Like you're going to get better. You're going to play against people who aren't as bad as the computers. And I always wondered, why is that on there? Why do they have to warn me that I'm going to go and get better at the game? Man,
Right?
I don't know. Somebody probably sued somebody at some point. Uh,
Right.
moving on from Horizon Forbidden West, let's talk about Far Cry. Far Cry 6 just got its newest unveiling. It was originally announced, I think, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. And we just saw gameplay for the first time with a lot of extra context about what's going on in the game, what the heck is the point, and why Juan is going to be our extra baddie bad guy. Everybody knows and loves him.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the story here? And how is this game going to work? Apparently, you play as either a male or a female, and you are coming into this island of Yara. It's in the Caribbean. It's a made up island. You're gonna hop in here, and you're gonna throw a wrench into the succession of power between a president and his son, dictator and his
Mm-hmm.
son. And obviously, in classic Far Cry style, there's a lot of explosions and gunshots involved. In this game, they're allowing you to do what I like to say is more Fallout styled weapons, which is basically picking stuff up from the ground and from the areas in the game and making weapons out of them. Something they like to call resolving. And I think that's really cool. I think that's going to open up the RPG and the gunplay a lot more and make things interesting. They're also adding outpost style gameplay like from Red Dead Redemption 2 and other things that I think are taking the franchise in a new direction in the same way that Assassin's Creed recently kind of went in a new direction. What have you just have you said you've never played a Far Cry game before, right?
I've never played a Far Cry game before. Yes.
So, as somebody who's never played one and
Mhm.
is now seeing Far Cry 6, was there a reason you didn't play it before? And do you see a reason to play this one, or is it just kind of it's still there? You're just thinking about it.
It's something that has definitely been on my radar before, has probably slipped under for a variety of reasons. I always like to stick to a nice core group of games that I play, and I play the crap out of them. However, watching the video for Far Cry 6, what really took my heart was this wiener dog named Trizo. When I saw him, I was like, holy crap, this might get me to actually spend $60 on this game.
Good job,
You
guys.
also get a pet crocodile. I mean, Florida guys, it's your game, you know.
Oh,
You get a crocodile named Guapo. And you have
Guapo
different
the
gameplay
Croc.
mechanics, right? And you have different gameplay mechanics for each. Guapo, he can swim in the water for the water missions, which we got to see some of. He's meant for more assault. He goes and chomps your enemies. And then you have Chorizo for your stealth gameplay. He goes and be his adorable little wiener dog self, and you can go take out all the bad guys. I mean, you get
Wait,
pets
so
and it fits into mechanics. Hell
does he like
yeah.
distract them?
Yeah, with this cuteness. I mean, come on.
That's awesome. That's perfect. It sounds like
Yeah,
that sounds like the strategy my wife will take every time. Except she'll probably
absolutely.
also get distracted by the pup, so I'm not
Well,
sure that'll work.
here's my question. How long will she spend just looking at the dog and trying to play with him during
Yeah,
the
that's
game?
the problem. It's
Mhm.
just not going to be a Far Cry game anymore. It's just a puppy
It's a
simulator
pet
at that
simulator.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah, with
exactly.
like gunshots and explosions around you. So that's going to be. So there
Mhm.
are more reasons for you to pick this one up than before.
Absolutely. It
Okay.
looks very unique. It might be something to get me into the franchise for sure. We'll
I
see.
would I would say one of the biggest selling points of Far Cry games to me has always been the villains. And
Mhm.
if story and going up against a good villain is something you're really into, while it hasn't aged incredibly well, Far Cry 3 is really I think it's the best in the series still.
Well, I mean,
So,
with Juan Carlo Esposito, he's already the baddie from Breaking Bad.
yeah.
Now we've seen him in Star Wars, and now we're seeing here in Far Cry 6. So
Yeah.
I think they're definitely capitalizing on his popularity as a baddie and knowing how well he is as an actor, and hopefully that transitions well to voice acting.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
pretty excited.
yeah, and they do that. There's the actor in Far Cry 3 who was the villain. He's in a couple of different things. You might not have seen him. He's not as big as Juan, but he's in it's a pretty big show called I think it was from BBC Canada called Orphan Black.
Hmm.
and he's a very good actor. And that he's been in a couple other things I can't remember him from. But if you just go look up a clip from that game of him acting, it's some of the best virtual acting I've ever seen. It's very,
Hmm.
very good. But let's talk about Dying Light 2. It's the next game that I kind of wanted to touch on. This is one that disappeared for a few years. And people thought it was in trouble. I thought it was in trouble. I thought it was going to completely change. And we just now have seen a new showing of the game. It's looking fairly similar, seeing some shortcuts here and there, but it is looking like something that I'm still going to pick up day one. Have you played
Hmm.
Dying Light?
I have not played Dying Light at all.
My man. You guys see how many different games I have to introduce this guy to?
Hmm.
Oh my
Hmm.
gosh. You haven't played dude, we got to play Dying Light. We
Oh
That's the
well.
game, man. We've been playing Halo. We got to play Dying Light. Have you seen it? Do you know what it is? It is.
Never, ever.
Oh, dude. That
Hmm.
is a good one. Imagine, you know Mirror's Edge?
No.
No? You know Assassin's Creed?
I know Assassin's Creed,
You
of
know
course.
Assassin's
Yeah,
Creed.
yeah, yeah,
Imagine
yeah.
first person Assassin's Creed, but instead of
Okay.
assassinating dudes, you're just trying to survive in a zombie apocalypse. It is
Okay.
so much fun. And it's co-op.
Oh
So
well.
you
Sold
could
me on
be
co-op.
freaking parkour free running with your friends along rooftops, literally jumping off the heads of zombies, grabbing up scraps, throwing together makeshift weapons with like freaking knives and drills and screwdrivers and like guns and all this stuff, putting it together, finding out creative ways to take care of these zombies and complete objectives to try and escape from this city, all without
Mm.
turning into a zombie yourself. And it's sort of in the same way that DayZ is a zombie game that deals with PvP. This is sort of like a game that deals with PvE. So while you're trying to survive the zombies, you're also trying to survive other factions. And in the
Mhm.
daytime, the zombies are weak, they're slow, they just kind of walk around. But at night, they're freaking supercharged and they chase you,
Mhm.
and it's scary as hell. So it goes from like an action adventure co op uh, zombie survival game to like a stealth horror co-op experience at night, and it is an incredible experience. It's so much fun to play with your friends, and they supported it for like 3 years, everything for free. So definitely one worth picking up, and I would keep an eye on this game, especially going into E3 with what they're talking about and going into this next year whenever it releases, because that's what I'm going to pick up. I think you should definitely check that out
Mhm.
though.
Okay.
I would play that. If you said you were gonna buy that, I'd play that with you. That's a good freaking game. It's a little scary. You know how I am with scary games. but but it's definitely worth it to check out. And that's were there any other games that I'm forgetting?
Hmm.
You want to touch on? We
Um.
talked about just about all of them.
I think so. The Unreal Engine 5 demo. Did we talk
Yeah,
about that?
yeah.
I
So I wanted to talk
think
about
that's
that
about it.
before, just to close us off
Mhm.
before we finished. Unreal Engine 5 is, I think they showed it off last year for the first time, and everybody immediately came out and they were like, "Star Citizen's dead. They got Planet Generation. It's over." I think the engine looks amazing. You watched it, right?
Mhm.
And before I say what I'm about to say about that, in fact, why don't you? What did you think of it when you were seeing it?
Thought it looked beautiful. I was hearing them describe the triangle thing that they were doing with the nanites as they described it. It was
Yeah,
very
nanites.
interesting.
Hmm.
Very interesting. Seeing the lighting and how it changed everything, and how every triangle is a pixel, and I don't know. It was amazing getting to see even not just the graphics and the visuals, but the sound and the dynamic range
Yeah,
was amazing. I think this is it's going to be a great engine for sure. And I'm curious to see how they implement this in games and really use it to its full potential, because I see a lot of great things.
it's really crazy how Epic kind of hit their stride at the end of
Hmm.
this. Not the end, rather, but towards I guess the kind of the middle of the last decade, especially with Fortnite, but also Unreal Engine
Yeah.
has been making great strides, and they've been getting a lot more big name games signed on with it. So
Hmm.
this was just as impressive, to be honest, as the other stuff that they've done in the past. The problem is they always come out with these demos and they show us this stuff, but this is just the demo. This is like This is like back when, and I'm jumping industries a little bit here, but in Google I/O, Google would have their yearly developer conference. This is before they made the Pixel and they had their own line of phones. Um, they would make this conference and they'd be like, "Hey, check this out. This is all the cool software stuff you're gonna see. Here's all the amazing animations, the buttons, the apps, the ideas. Woohoo! It's all great." And then it would come out, and you'd be waiting 3 months, 6 months, nine
Hmm.
months, 12 months, and you wouldn't really see this stuff happening. And it would take so long for developers to actually start doing that stuff themselves. And when they did, sometimes it was just not complete implementation. Sometimes it was broken. Sometimes it was just wrong.
Yeah.
So I feel like that kind of happens with game engines too. You see this amazing demo where they're using all this amazing technology, but like, when's the first time a company is going to be able to accurately, reliably, and efficiently put this stuff into their game in a big way and have it run for us? I'm thinking a couple years at least, which is fine,
Absolutely.
but I think that's realistic. I think people need to realize that because I see a lot of comments in the comment section for that video. People are like, "Just make this into a game. Just release this. We want to play this." That's like that's a sliver. That's a tailor-made little taste of what a game would be. We don't know if they can make a full game with that yet. Nobody
Mhm.
has. So right now they're working on it. I think that's going to take a while. And I think some of the stuff that we saw in that demo, it gets me pumped because one of the craziest things in that demo that I saw was the parallax effect that they would get because it wasn't a backdrop in the background, it was actually there.
Mhm.
But in my head, I'm like, okay, Epic is giving us the ability to have that stuff actually there. But what is a game studio going to do? They're going to have that stuff actually there, but they're going to have it be completely blank, super pointless to go there. And there's a certain level at which I'm like, okay, well, is that worth the trade-off? Like,
Mhm.
do we really want to trade off their performance or the capabilities in order to have a real backdrop instead of a faked one? Because we
Mhm.
do real ones in Star Citizen, but that's because we will very likely go there. But in a game like what they showed in that demo, what are the chances I'm going to travel 2 miles to the south, right? So I'm just I'm super excited for that engine and I'm very impressed with what they're showing, and like I've seen people doing it on YouTube and I'm freaking pumped for what they're going to do with Unreal Engine 5 cuz it looks freaking cool.
Mhm.
But I'm also I've grown a little cynical to these things, and I think Star Citizen's probably done a little bit of that. But I'm like, when when is that actually going to happen? Um
Exactly.
from what we've seen, console generations, it usually takes like 3 to 4 years, sometimes even like five. Like halfway through the console generation is when we start to see games really take advantage of the console power. So I
Mhm.
kind of expect the same thing with the engine, you know?
Absolutely. No, I mean, we can see all the capabilities of the engine, but will game companies utilize it to its full potential? Will they completely retcon certain features and be like, we don't really do that. We'll give that up, just do some backdrops and call it a day. We're seeing it at 100%, but will game companies scale back 80,
Yeah.
75,
Yeah.
60, 50? How much are we going to see that implemented will really be the deciding factor of how Unreal Engine gets perceived to by the community through the games.
Makes you wonder what a big budget like single player RPG would look like from Epic, since they have such complete control over the engine. That'd be
Hmm.
interesting. But yeah, I think that's. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
Nope, that's it for me.
Well, Drazen didn't have his cowboy hat this week,
I did not.
unfortunately. Yeah, he dropped the ball there, but
Hmm.
we'll get it. I think we'll get it next week. We'll make sure that
Next
happens.
week.
And of course, everybody who's here, if you are here, if you're here this whole time, then you probably know this is a new podcast. This is episode 2. We just started this. We're still getting it up and going, as you can see. Still got a live chat window.
Hmm.
Don't need one. Don't have a logo for the podcast yet either, but that's coming along the way. And of course, like I said, we're going to start getting guests in here. Going to bring on Star Citizen personalities, maybe people from other games. We'll do 2-person talks, 3-person talks. Maybe one day we'll do a real roundtable. But for now, you got me, as you know, Kay, and your boy Drazen over there, or as you know, M. And we are your hosts here on the launch sequence. I'd like to thank you again for coming to week 2, Please, if you are listening to this on any of your podcast platforms, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Amazon, wherever, please rate it. Please rate the podcast. Let us know how we're doing. If you were here on YouTube, leave comments. Please tell me what you like, what you don't like. This is the first podcast experience I've had. He's done it before, but I'm new to this. So please tell us what you like, what you didn't like, what discussion you liked, and what you want to hear more about. And well, with that being said, we'd like to say goodbye, and we'll see you next week.